Welcome back to Cannabis Coast to Coast News this week. This is the B Block. I'm executive producer Jimmy Young, filling in for Elena Pinto, who is on assignment this week. Now it's time for our international news reports, and we start in the UK with Dave Barton.
I'm Dave Barton from Thermidor with your UK Cannabis Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. The tabloid backlash against medical cannabis and mental health has begun here in the UK. The Daily Mail newspaper, a right-wing shit rag that's popular among the pearl-clutching middle classes, is decrying the burgeoning sector, which currently sits at just under 100,000 patients. Claims like high-strength medical cannabis being handed out by private clinics and cut-price weed being given to benefits claimants, as well as ultra-strong strains being imported from Amsterdam, do nothing to appreciate the ongoing struggles faced by many patients, many of whom have clinic-issued prescriptions for psychological conditions like anxiety, PTSD, and OCD. Instead, the piece repeatedly demonizes CBPMs and relies on well-worn tropes around cannabis legality and its unlicensed status. And if you think this piece is biased, consider it a counter to the tripe that's being pushed by the mainstream media. That's all for this week. I'm Dave Barton from Thermidor, reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I'm Dave Barton in the UK.
This is Debi Facey with the Canadian Coast to Coast Cannabis News Report. So what we have in Canada this week is with Health Canada now easing their regulatory rules, many of the dispensaries are now actually working together to be able to create more of an incentive when it comes to the excise taxes. What we also have seen in the first 9 months of 2025, pre-rolls had dominated the cannabis industry here in Canada. So most of the dried flower wasn't necessarily up to the consumer's want, and the ease of the pre-rolls just made it a lot easier for the consumers to purchase, buy, and it become now a $9.2 billion sector within the cannabis market that is obviously dominating. When it comes to the Canadian news, this is Debi Facey with the Cannabis Coast to Coast Cannabis News Report. Peace.
The state of New York continues to grow its cannabis market and has now reached the $1 billion a year threshold. More and more licenses are being awarded across the Empire State, which is fueling sales, with legal dispensaries growing like a weed. Get it? Despite that growth, there are still some bad actors who continue to challenge the law. This week, the Office of Cannabis Management busted an illegal convenience store operating in Queens when thousands of illegal products were discovered behind an electrical outlet in a wall. Now let's check in with Amie Carter in Michigan, where they are selling ounces for just $58, the lowest price in the country. Here's Amie.
I'm Amie Carter with Michigan Weed Source for this week's Michigan Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. Michigan's cannabis market wrapped up 2025 big, busy, and budget-friendly. Legal sales topped $3.2 billion for the year, with December alone pulling in $269 million. While the average ounce price dropped to an all-time low of around $58, flower still ruled the shelves, edibles and vapes stayed strong, and delivery sales continued to grow. With millions of plants in play, massive inventory levels, and more than 2,100 active licenses, Michigan is heading into 2026 as one of the most affordable and competitive cannabis markets in the country. But according to reporting by Lansing City Pulse, the mood across the industry is shifting. While sales remain high as of January 1st, a new 24% wholesale excise tax kicked in, stacked on top of the existing retail and sales tax, putting serious pressure on growers, dispensaries, and consumers alike. We're already seeing the fallout, operators downsizing or exiting, mega grows scaling back, and margins getting squeezed hard. At the same time, there has been noticeable increase in medical card renewals and renewed interest in the patient caregiver program as people look to find ways to avoid the higher costs. Federal hopes like Schedule 3 are still on the horizon, but the reality here in Michigan right now is clear. Higher prices, fewer operators, and an industry learning fast that you can't outgrow a tax bill this big. If you are from Michigan looking to get your medical card, head to MichiganWeedsters.com and follow the link to Essential Telehealth. On the advocacy front, Michigan's cannabis community is officially getting organized. Groups including Michigan Weedsters, Michigan Normal, Americans for Safe Access, iHemp Michigan, and advocates from both the Democratic and Republican parties have united as the Michigan Cannabis Community Coalition. Their goal is simple: help voters identify, support cannabis-friendly candidates ahead of midterms, keeping cannabis policy nonpartisan and people-focused. To learn more or get involved, visit MichiganCannabisCoalition.com. Looks like we have a lot of work ahead. That's it for this week. I'm Amie Carter with Michigan Weedsters for this week's Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
One of the largest multi-state operators in the U.S. is Curaleaf. This week, that MSO opened its 160th retail operation and its 71st in Florida, located in Lauderhill. Curaleaf is the second largest operator in the Sunshine State, which is dominated by another MSO, TrueLeaf. Now, let's check in with Kimmie Cannabis in Oklahoma.
I am Kimmie Cannabis from Can I Talk About It with your Oklahoma Cannabis Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. First up, new numbers from the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Program show continued declines across patients and businesses. State regulators report 319,965 active medical patients, down from around 324,000 last fall and down sharply from more than 340,000 at the start of 2025. Caregiver participation is also down, with 1,078 active caregivers compared to 1,222 this time last year. On the business side, Oklahoma now has 4,512 active licensed cannabis businesses, down from nearly 5,800 a year ago. Growers still make up the largest share at 2,261 licenses, followed by 1,453 dispensaries, 710 processors, 60 transporters, 19 labs, and 8 waste disposal licensees. Next, in a move towards greater transparency, OMA has also launched a new online resource that allows the public to view administrative actions filed against commercial licensees, providing updates on the enforcement cases in the name of public health and safety. That's it from Can I Talk About It in Oklahoma with Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I am Kimmie Cannabis. Peace, love, and all that good stuff.
California may still be the largest state in the union and the number one cannabis market, but they still have plenty of restrictive regulations. Many advocates in different parts of the state have been working hard to overcome some of the unfair and unjust regulations. That is certainly true in the city of San Diego. Dina Nagib caught up with an attorney who was instrumental in making changes to things that have been on the books since 2017.
I'm Dina Nagib with Grass Goddess Consulting, reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I'm here today following the Board of Supervisors meeting for the County of San Diego with Kelly Hayes from the Law Office of Kelly M. Hayes, who spoke at the meeting today. Kelly, thanks for being with me. Could you tell me just a little bit about what the vote was here today?
Thanks, Dina. Yes, we had an incredible victory today. The Board of Supervisors has voted for option A, which is matches all state regulations to proceed with all cannabis uses and licensing. First, to begin with social equity applicants, and then additional industry professionals and businesses may apply thereafter. It's historic. The county originally had passed a ban in 2017, and county staff has been working for years to now replace that ban with an ordinance that has safe and equitable regulations. And today we saw that pass.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you said some great things about, specifically your clients that you represent, the Farmers Cup. They had a legal license event. That was actually the last time we did an interview together. And what made you feel compelled today to come and speak on it?
To educate the public, to educate our representatives here in San Diego, because they are not in touch and in tune with this industry as much as people like you and I are. This is what we do day in and day out, and so that was the purpose of me coming today, was to help educate the attendees on this ordinance and the importance of its passage.
I really appreciate that. And a lot of the opposition we heard today was just misinformed, miseducated. They don't really understand cannabis and what, legalization is really doing. So, I think it's important that, we hear from the industry, and that's why I really appreciate you speaking up today. Anything else you think we need to mention before we wrap up?
Yeah, so this is not the final, all done ordinance. What happens next is now staff will come back with their draft ordinance with the board's direction that we got today, and staff will likely come back in the summer of 2026 with that draft ordinance for review and voting. And then once that passes, then we'll have a law in place where social equity applicants can begin the application process.
You heard it here, San Diego. See everyone here in June. We have another vote coming. And I just want to say thank you to Kelly. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. I'm Dina Nagib with Grass Goddess Consulting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
That'll do it for the B block of Cannabis Coast to Coast News this week. We have plenty more ahead of us, including impact from President Trump's rescheduling executive order on mergers and acquisitions in the cannabis industry. Doug Miller is our man who's high on Wall Street, and he'll have some insight on that as Cannabis Coast to Coast News continues after this break. It's a whole new world of weed out there, isn't it? Everyone is learning new ways to titrate, ingest, consume, imbibe, and engage with this plant medicine we call cannabis. Now let me tell you my cannabis story. I've had 4 major surgeries in the past 23 years and suffer from osteoarthritis with a variety of metal parts in my body and one on deck. Now, thanks to those chronic pain issues, I've been a medical patient in Massachusetts for almost 10 years now. I remember my first trip to a dispensary just outside of Boston, and I told the bud tender I didn't want to smoke it anymore. So I tried edibles, then tinctures, then vaping, and now if I'm going to smoke, I only use the Weegits filtration system. What? The Weegits.com, Weegits, that's weed, W-E-E-D, G-E-T-S.com, is where you'll find the planet's coolest product that cools the smoke from everyone's favorite flower. Now, the guy that started this was a pretty good medical device manufacturer, and he created this maze pipe that cools the smoking process from 1300 degrees Fahrenheit upon inflammation down to just 90 degrees when it reaches your mouth. That's right, 1300 down to 90. That's why this maze pipe is amazing. So here's how it works. You start with that glass bowl, you flame on, and then you inhale nice and smooth so the smoke goes through 3 different filtration and cooling systems. Now, if pre-rolls is your thing, you can use the Weegits filter that a pre-roll fits into perfectly. That's right, or even a chillum. The more filters, the smoother the draw. Best of all is the price. You can get all this, or one or the other, for just a few bucks. It'll cool your smoke and you'll give your lungs a break. Now, add in the code of PCMTV and you get 15% off. So just go to Weegits.com and check out the best way to enjoy a cooler smoke with less coughing and hacking and more peace of mind. All that resin and tar is collected in the polyurethane filters that are easy to clean with soap, water, and a few Q-tips. Your lungs will thank you, and so will I.